This is why I wasn't going to let myself go to bed early today. I was like, nah, I got to talk about this. I have to. I can't let this one fucking slide. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. I've talked a lot about North American competitors down the years and how generally America will always have a purple patch in every esport that they are ever in, and it will be predicated on a collective group of players being able to understand work to reward ratios, right? And so, for example, back in the day when it was I Buy Power, you have guys like Steel, Dazed, Swag, Skadoodle, or AZK, all from successful teams, all know each other, all been around the scene for a while. They come together, they make a Voltron type team, super successful. It's got all the parts to be successful. They're hands down the best in NA, and they grind and they work and they get it. And they were doing it for the promise of things to come because they genuinely thought they could get there. And then, of course, as soon as temptation reared its head for just a little bit, boom, they fuck up and they get got. And the scene is forever changed. And it's the same in every game for as long as I've been in esports. It's the same in every game that blows up and goes big. It goes like this. Americans are slacking off, making the money, enjoying the status, enjoying the fame, slacking off. Oh, wait a minute, now it's real. Now we can make real money. Who's going to grind? Let's all get together. The grinders eventually find the other grinders. They go and they make a team. They rise to the top. And then eventually, as the scene starts to slow down or die off, or they feel that they can't go any further, it goes back to let's slack off, let's make money. I want to be a streamer. Blah, 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 blah. And then that's how that story ends. And it's, it's true in League. It's why, like, the LCS used to be the most, the big place to go, the desirable place to watch players. Now, all the NA teams, it's like either subpar players or subpar imports in some cases. All the big names are kind of shadows of themselves. It's become a joke. And CS, obviously, as we know, not without mitigating circumstances. The ESL pulling all their slots didn't help. Sponsorships, the emergence of Valorant, the way that all of their fucking GMs, much like the players, want to do everything on easy mode. And so, can I have a franchise? Can I have a franchise? Can I have guaranteed baseline success? No, you have to work for it like what we do in Europe. I'm not interested in that. I've invested hundreds of millions. Yeah, okay, well, have you ever thought about not investing money that you can't afford to lose? Well, I can, really. It's not even my money to begin with. Nyuk, nyuk, nyuk. I'm an American GM, it's ridiculous how fucking pathetic the American esports scene is if you just analyze it on the face of it. And, they all want the same thing. They all want these guaranteed returns, right? And so do the players. I feel like there's something rotten in American esports culture, and it like sort of trickles down. Everybody thinks they're entitled to something just because they throw in a little bit of money, a little bit of work. And that's not life. That's not sports. That's not success. This is why, by the way, you will all, from now until the end of time, right, until this attitude prevalent at the heart of American esports changes, this is why until the end of time, that no matter how good Americans get, there will be someone somewhere in an economically, by comparison to the United States, an economically impoverished country that is willing to work harder, work smarter, work more, do more, be more, take less, appreciate things. And they will blow you out the water 99 times out of 100. That's where we always end up every time. And it's not just, by the way, it's not just like an esports problem. Let's be real. Like, we've had this talk about soccer in America when I was out there. I remember, I think it was Roy Wegerle was having his little fucking crucible, and everyone was talking about how, for the amount of money put into soccer programs in the US, the American male players at least are woefully underserving that investment, and on and on and on it goes. You don't need to tell me about it because I've seen it firsthand. I've seen the American players and the American orgs and seen their attitudes. And I called this one a mile off because what we're going to be talking about is EG. Some people saw the logo on the American flag that I like to use when I come in on my streams. No, I'm not sponsored by EG. I haven't joined them. I haven't joined the dark side. Although, listen, I could whip them into shape. No fucking two ways about it. They need to buck their ideas up, and they need no more cuddly Moses or well-spoken tactical mastermind Malek. It's time for a Ricardo Castro type character to come in. It's beyond a joke where they're at right now, and they need some fucking brutal truths. But anyway, I did call this one. I said right from the get-go, I said that this was a team that was essentially uncoachable. I said that. And I explained why. And there's been this thing festering in the North American scene, and it revolves around Stewie. Now, I like Stewie, so if it is going to be a little bit of a Stewie bashing session, but only because I think what I'm going to talk about is sort of empirical truth. But, I also really like him as a guy. I wish he would stop this. I wish he would stop trying to be the leader he isn't. I wish he would come back to the light, and instead of trying to dine out on past glory and because he believes he's entitled to it on the things he did, I wish he could get back to being the player that could change a game and go and get some more trophies, achieve relative to his talents. Unfortunately, he's wasting the last of his good years, and I think he feels secure in doing that because I think he believes he'll walk into a top Valorant contract, and chances are he probably will. It could even be with an EG. That might have to be the compromise that they arrive at. But the reality is Stewie2k is going to go down as one of the greatest North American players of all time. There is no question about that. He's in the conversation with a leash, but I'm going to say it. What the future looks like for me, as far as I see it now, is I think Twistzz is going to completely overshadow him. Twistzz has got his head screwed on right. He's younger. He's in a European team. He's clearly motivated for success. He wants to work with... He doesn't want to be the guy calling the shots. He wants the shots called for him, and he wants to succeed as part of a framework, as part of a structure. He couldn't be in a better position right now. And Twistzz is going to be, at the end of it all, he's going to be the GOAT North American player. Now, North America, we lump the Canadians in. So, he's obviously the best Canadian player, and he's not American. But you know what? Fuck it. I am content to lump them in with each other because it illustrates my point better. So, but yeah, Twistzz is, for me, on course to be the great one out of the North American scene. Got his major, got his Grand Slam. Is positioned to potentially get more majors than certainly Stewie is. I don't think Stewie's on a team ranked in the top 50 right now, and he's the leader of it in its terrible, terrible optics. So I've wanted people to accept Stewie's lots of things. He might be a great leader theoretically in how he thinks about the game. He might be a great leader theoretically in that he understands tactics and knows what everyone should be doing. But if you cannot keep your attitude right, if you cannot get people on board with what you want to do, it's irrelevant. It's like when you see a politician and they're campaigning and they're saying the right things and you like their policies, but if they express themselves in a way that makes them dislikable, essentially unelectable, it's pointless to support them. They cannot get in power. It's irrelevant. There's loads of politicians like this, especially in America. Politicians where it's like, if you would change the way you deliver your message, the messaging's fine. But no, people don't. People don't vote for them. So, and that's what Stewie is, essentially. Stewie is a guy who, the only person that's fully on board with what Stewie does as a leader is Stewie. That is not a recipe for success. And so I said Malek was a waste of time in EG, because at the end of the day, if you can't get the players to listen, then it's irrelevant. And so there was an article today. It was an interview by our friend Nell, who took a break from bragging about meeting Macron. I wouldn't have attended that, because I remember what happened to French people during the yellow shirt protests, where elderly women were beaten by riot police, and the police were caught deliberately aiming tear gas canisters at people's eyes to blind them. So whatever, but that's just me. I guess I have a greater love for the French people than Nell. And then again, he has been busy lately chasing down all those imaginary Zeds. But he took a break from that to publish a pretty good interview, if I'm being honest about it, and one that I'm going to take at face value, because it aligns with things I've been told. It aligns with things that I sort of know. And while I'm sure it's embellished in the way that we all embellish stories from our perspective, I would go so far as to say I have almost no doubt in my mind that this is almost entirely accurate. So we're going to go through it. I'm going to talk about it. So this is the interview that they did here, and this is essentially the transcript of it. And so there's some key parts. So he says he wasn't involved in the creation of the roster. They tried to get Valder, we all know that. He said Stewie and Malek had been told he was kind of blacklisted, he wasn't good as IGL, but then other people, including EG, were saying that Stewie should be signed and that they believed in him. Damien was very hesitant to sign Stewie, and the EG, the org, pushed hard. We want him, he's a superstar, he won a major, he's the best player in the US, etc. And the balance finally tipped, and he accepted Stewie and Automatic. I had heard good things about him, but he was coming back from Valorant. This is obviously Automatic, so it was a risk, but one that was manageable. Breezy and Cirque, I didn't know them. I knew that Cirque was in a slump and that we had to make a system around him, that he had never been used properly. It was a real challenge. Oh, by the way, I should point out, this is Evie, Paolo Evie Burbido, who was the assistant coach. He was the assistant to Malek in EG. So that's the relevance as to what we're talking about there. So the first part, listen, I understand why. I saw a lot of people on Reddit were kind of chiming up and going, oh, it was doomed from the start because the org made the coach take a player on board. This is always going to be a balancing act. There's always going to be some mitigation you have to go through with this. And that is ultimately that at the end of the day, they needed a flagship player to come in, someone that had some blockbuster qualities, good positive headlines, real potential to add some quality and experience to the roster. And so even if the coach is going, I've heard they're not a good IGL, I can sort of understand from the organizational perspective, look, we have to take somebody that fits those qualities. You're a coach, you're the adult, we're going to empower you to have input into the team. I'm sure you'll make it work. And so I don't think it's quite as bad as people make out. I think you're always going to have this issue where there are like a handful of coaches that get to decide the roster. And in general, they're coaches that have worked with rosters they didn't get to decide in the first place. And they built up their credibility within the organization, Xtaz, Zonic, people like this, Blade, obviously. So anyway, there was that. Then, in the beginning, we did a boot camp in Katowice to prepare for Blast. 30 days in a hotel. It's training every day, one after the other. Classic days of a pro team. At the beginning, we could feel that it was going to be complicated. I'll make a comparison. When I was at G2, at first I had to work with Kenny S. The first night, he comes to me privately on TeamSpeak and says, I know we're going to work together. Here's my number. Call me anytime and we'll do what you want. I expected the opposite from him. He is very open to feedback. It was the same with Hunter and Jax. So to compare with EG, when I arrive, I expect the same mindset. We meet the first night at the restaurant and I hear stuff. And this is obviously from Stewie. My vision of a coach is a guy who doesn't decide things and just assists. The American mentality is that the coach is a yes man. He gets paid X amount of dollars to say, yes, nice guys. From the first night, I said to myself, watch out, this is a red flag. That was Automatic's vision, a vision that has evolved, by the way. And I think he really regrets our departure with Malek. In the beginning, he was in Stewie's camp. Like, let us do our shit. We want a major. We know how to get it done. So, this is what, I've talked about this time and time again. What American players want from coaches is they want somebody that will babysit. They want somebody that will act as an intermediary and resolve conflict between the two parties. They want somebody that will come to them and say, here's some tendencies that the other player plays with. In other words, they do the anti-strats for them. But what they really don't want is somebody who says, you need to do this now. You need to play like this now. This round you need to call this. They don't like it. American IGLs can't handle that. And I get it. It's your vision, your team, you're the leader. But the thing that annoys me is they do that and they have it that way. And yet, when the team fails, the coach is always the first line of defense. The coach is always the first to get fired. The coach is always the first to have to fall on their fucking sword. And it's like, you cannot have it both ways. If you want to make the decisions and make all the calls, you have to have all the responsibility and all the accountability. It cannot be both ways. You cannot reduce your coach to a glorified, like, analyst, essentially. And then turn around and go, yeah, bloody hell, we're just losing. I guess we're going to have to get rid of, insert name here. And I'll tell you, and it's unrelated to this, but it always stuck in my craw a little bit with how Team Liquid handled their coaching, swaps. You know, they had Adrian, who had been a fantastic servant to Team Liquid as a player. He's a player that I know from Source. You know, nice guy. I never thought he was a particularly proactive coach when he was in the coaching role. You'll remember from By the Numbers. Famously, we used to always say he never calls timeouts. He just sits there. Now you probably realize why. Because when you're in these teams, it's not your call. Like, you don't, though you're the coach, you're really just there for, like, at that point, moral support. It's really weird. And it's an almost uniquely American kind of situation. But then, you know, they cut Adrian, who they said had all this tactical input, which, spoiler, he didn't, because they're not going to allow that. And then they brought in Moses. And why did they bring in Moses? They wanted Moses to come in because they said, oh, we need like an adult. We need someone that can, like, you know, when our mood is low and our ego's getting in the way and we're clashing, we need somebody that's, like, really good at, like, communication. And then as soon as he tried to put those fires out, they just fucking turned on him and looked to manage him out. And who did they bring back? The same guy they just got rid of. Why? Because he's a fucking yes man. He's a former player like them. You know, they keep their own counsel, don't they? And spoiler, by the way, unrelated, the word on the street is that Team Liquid are now looking at other coaching options. And, you know, can't wait to see who they're going to get and how, you know, and how that's going to work out. North American players are just uncoachable. You're just going to have to accept it. It's a you thing. It's not a coach thing. It's a you thing. It's a player thing. EG had made it clear, though, that Malek would have the reins, carte blanche on player changes, he would be allowed to establish his system, etc. Except that on the first day of practice, we looked at each other with Malek and we were shocked. To make it simple, this is a silly analogy, but whatever. In terms of attitude, it looked like a face-it game. And we didn't understand why Stewie didn't give his death cam. He didn't give all the time his communication. He was in fun mode. He would rage. Malek likes discipline and a good attitude, so we thought that we should put them on the right path. The very next morning, we had a discussion explaining what we had seen was not right, and from there, it was already over. So there's your other problem right there. That the reason this particular lineup is called, you know, check stealers or whatever, it's this. It's that at the end of the day, like, you've got to realize, like, clearly you're not in a great place. And so I get that this was at the start. This is their first boot camp. Spirits are high. There's going to be some fun. but you have got to start as you mean to go on. You've got to fucking set the tone. You've got to be working hard. This is not just like another big opportunity, of which there will be plenty. Let's be clear, there are 3 North American organizations worth talking about in CSGO right now, and one of them, Complexity, is never going to make this type of signing for this type of money ever again. They've spent big. They've done that. They're in almost like, a development phase right now. So it's Team Liquid or it's Evil Geniuses, or you have to hope some other North American organization just decides to come back to CSGO, even though we all know they'd be better off in Valorant for that region, and waste a ton of money. That's what you're having to wait for. And instead, it's a bit of fun. Hey, I got my team. Let's go. I'm playing a Face It Pug. Let's rage. Let's not calm. Let's not do this. And of course, at a boot camp, you're going to do things to blow off steam. But when it comes to your training, your practicing, your scrims, you got to take that shit serious. If you don't, you're wasting everyone's time. So as a coach, you come out day 2, you go, listen, guys, just to make it clear, a bit of fun yesterday, but that's not what we're going to do moving forward. And of course, obviously, immediately upset. Because how dare you? How dare you, a coach, a fucking manager? How dare you speak to me, the star, the player, like that? And I want you to think about, just again, to give like an example from Europe. I want you to think about Xtaz pulling Apex out of the IGL role in the middle of a tournament because his mood wasn't right, and giving the IGL role over to Shocks and then bringing in them subbing Apex out. I want you to think about that, and there's no coach in the world that could go and do that with NA players. They just quit. They just have a tantrum. I'm after Valorant. By the way, that is like, and I'm told this behind the scenes all the time. Whenever these players are challenged, these big name North American players, that's all they say. I guess I'll just go to Valorant then, bro. If it's going to be like this, it's like, you're already mentally defeated. You're not going to do anything, in this game if you're already kind of like plotting a fucking exit out of it when the going gets tough. And, we'll get to. Remember, EG could have been playing against decent European opposition right now, and EG had to send in one of their understudy teams, didn't they? And, I wonder why that is. We'll get to that. I was already wondering what we were doing there, but we didn't give up. It's our job to deal with problems, but the problem was that they weren't letting us handle them. When you have Stewie, who has that aura, who we respect for what he's done, and that leadership, well, who are the players going to follow? Malek and Evie, who have never won anything, and they don't know, too much about, or Stewie2k. Stewie wouldn't say hello to Malek when we walked into the room by day 5 or 6. When Malek spoke, Stewie turned his back to his PC. He wasn't listening to him. Sometimes Stewie would listen to Malek and then turn around and not respond. One of the worst things I've seen is denying tactical breaks. Malek calling tactical breaks and Stewie saying no. I've never seen that. And from the first official game as well, we looked at each other and we just didn't understand. So again, this is really, childish behavior. I'll have to say, the first time that happens, like, I'll pull the Ethernet cable out the fucking wall and we're going to get this sorted out one way or the other. Because either I'm the coach, and when I say we're taking the tactical time out, we take the tactical time out, or I'm not the coach and we can stop wasting everyone's fucking time right now. And one of the things that I've noticed in general, because people are conflict averse, what you do is, you have to understand, when you deal with players, you are dealing with children. Wealthy, egotistical, talented children. It couldn't be worse. And so you have to, again, it's that phrase, you have to set the tone. If you put up with it on day 1 or day 2, you can't get angry on day 7. You didn't say nothing about it the first time. That's a you problem. I wouldn't have tolerated that. And certainly, it undermines you in a way that is going to be very hard for you to come back from a credibility perspective. When you're dealing with the IGL, the coach and the IGL are the ones that are meant to have the good working relationship. They're meant to be the ones that are simpatico. They're meant to be the ones that, no matter what happens in a scrim, Even if you're fucking secretly pissed off at each other or you don't like what one's doing, you have to grin and bear it. And then when everyone else goes away, then you can fucking tear strips off each other, away from the troops. That's how it's got to be. You don't want that rot setting in. You don't want players thinking, it's okay for him to get his ideas over there. It's okay for the AWPA to get their own ideas. The whole fucking thing's going to fall apart. It is meant to be a system. It's not fucking jazz, right? I'll also just add, I was hearing similar things from within that camp. And remember, I was like one of the big advocates for Malek. I've talked about him a lot. Yeah, he may not have like a glittering trophy cabinet, but he's a really good systems coach. And he's a really good systems coach and a hardworking coach who has been absolutely cursed with the IGLs he's had to work with down the years. So, is he good enough to coach that team? Absolutely. Are there players on that team that aren't fit to lace Malek's shoes? Absolutely. And unfortunately, you're going to get this fucking attitude whenever you try and do stuff in North America. Anyway, we move on. Every day we talked about it. This is Evie and Malek talking. To find solutions. Damien had a plan and trusted the management about him. That things would change and that we had to preserve the team. Of course, he was fed up with Stewie, and if he could shake him up, he would have, but that's not how you solve problems. If he does that, Stewie wins. I'm a little more emotional than Malek, so when Stewie disrespected me a couple of times, I had a clenched fist. I resented the injustice. I learned that I grew from that you can't fix everything right away. The guy, he thinks you're a piece of shit. That's just the way it is. I was able to prove to him the opposite, but I wanted to prove it to him differently at first. By the way, if you start literally smashing lumps out of each other, that's not going to help, guys. Future reference. From there, Breezy was neutral. Cirque was willing to follow. Tim was behind Stewie, and Rush was trying to make the connection between the camps. There were two groups, and I saw some unspeakable things in terms of the captain's attitude. I'm not going to name them, but we're on the equivalent of Face It Level 10, where someone has given up after round 2. It was very hard to live with. When you called them out, they had a well-honed reaction, gaslighting, like, I don't see how this is a big deal. I don't see how this is a problem. So we looked like the bad guys trying to push Stewie around when we were going right into the fucking wall. At Pro League, I had to be the coach because Malek was absent. Nicole Lapointe, the EG CEO, is there and in front of us. I'm standing behind them trying to motivate the team, and I'll be honest, he doesn't even call anymore in front of the president. And she sees that he's not calling anymore. If Stewie is still here, it's because contractually and financially speaking, there's something. I'm surprised Nicole didn't do anything about it. So this is another issue. You have to wonder, especially in light of other issues that have been going on, like, the signing of these other two North American teams. You have to wonder within that context if Nicole, having seen that, remember, by the way, they didn't win a single game at Pro League. They didn't win a single game at Pro League. They didn't look like winning a single game at Pro League. They looked absolutely terrible at Pro League, Stewie in particular, by the way. And that was significant because by finishing bottom for like 3 out of the 4 Pro League seasons they'd been in for, they were never going to be, but they could have had their partner status removed. They could have been removed from the ESL Pro League and put into one of the like feeder leagues again. They could have been made to earn their spot all over again. That's part of the agreement. Now, obviously, they're never going to do that to EG. It would have been terrible optics if ESL had banded together to fuck over NA again. But the fact that they weren't even giving it their all at that event, and I think they even did an interview, it might have been Rush who said it, we were just playing like not to lose and we just wanted to get it over with. It's like, guys, that's another tournament. By the way, their entire year is pretty much over now. It's like all the big tournaments that they could have done something at were all at the first half of the year. We're now in the second half of the year, and there's fuck all. You haven't qualified for anything. You haven't got ranking points. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. You weren't at the major. Anecdote. Day 2. We say to ourselves that Stewie, his attitude, it's a red flag and it's not okay. Malek really brought up the subject very gently. I don't know how he managed not to lose it. Plus, he was in a very bad health situation. The majority of the players agreed that his attitude was not an issue. Let's also just add, right? If Nicole, and I like Nicole, I think she's done it's a solid job. It's not a great job. There's definitely been some missteps, but they've done unbelievably well in League of Legends under her guidance. I do believe that's a game she has more of a natural affinity to. She's done, media and promotions work for that game in particular, and it's the results have shown. They kept reputedly behind the scenes. Everyone was saying, or EG maybe thinking about pulling out, but because she understands the organization's DNA and history, she's persisted to piss money up against the wall for a bunch of ingrates, essentially. I mean, like this, the EG team going right the way back to when it was purchased from NRG for $3 million. By the way, think about that for where we're at. Cloud9 buying the old Gambit team for $1 million. NRG being sold to EG for $3 million. Years ago. That's how much of a fucking steal that Cloud9 deal is. But anyway, ever since that team came in, it started out relatively strong. We had that amazing period where it was like Team Liquid EG really meant something. It wasn't just a rivalry for like best team in America. It was like a rivalry for potentially best team in the world. Everyone was moving around in that top 3. It was fucking great. It was a really good, vibrant time, 2019. I almost admire the folly of it all. And I suspect these, having 3 teams, I suspect this is essentially a way to meet obligations to like sponsors, maybe develop some talent, so you're not stuck with these fucking bums. I like, it's the wrong place to look, but for whatever reason, she wants to do it the NA way. It's the hard way, it's the wrong way for me, but that's her choice as a CEO. Misstepped in Valorant as well. But in general, this is where you go from being a boss to an enabler. Because Stewie's got no respect for a coach. That's one thing. Stewie's got no respect for the person literally signing his fucking checks. You got a real fucking problem, Nicole. Like, you really have. If he's willing to behave like that in front of you when the big boss comes around, you're gonna have to drop him. You are going to have to cut him. It's as simple as that. That is the only option at that point. Because that problem isn't going to get better. There's a fundamental lack of respect. There's a fundamental issue that you cannot cure. This, you watching it and then not doing anything about it, you've actually, you're part of the problem at that point. It's, that's just reality. Anyway, we get to the RMR. We all know how this story ends. But at the end of the RMR, the players came to us. It's been 3 months, and 3 months at EG is a very, very long time. The players tell me, Paolo, Stewie's attitude, it's not okay. Bro, we, the coaches, were telling you that since the second day. So now, what he's saying is, the players are pissed off. And let me tell you, another fucking hallmark of North American teams, all the same. They all go along for the ride with the big names and the big reputations and the big egos, and then when they can't stand it anymore, do they call out their bros that they were fucking ride or die with? No, they don't. What they do is they back channel like little bitches. They back channel and they go to like the coaches and the managers and go, I have a problem with this player. Yeah, he's out of control. If you cut him, we'll all back you and we'll back any replacement. And then when that player like is acting up next time, they're going, yeah, fuck the coach, fuck the org. It's like high school. It is honestly pathetic. Again, same shit over in Liquid. It's not just EG I'm talking about here. This is a North American problem. And it's almost got worse because what's happened is the opportunities have thinned out. The people that are guaranteed to be given those opportunities again and again and again and again believe they're untouchable. They got Valorant as the fucking perennial safety net, and it's just become an absolute insufferable nightmare. It's absolutely ridiculous. So now the players are on board and sort of wanting to usurp Stewie, according to the assistant coach. So from there, we created a meme with Damien that we were no longer coaches, but we were gardeners, and we would plant seeds and water them. And 3 months later, the players would come to the same ideas that we had had 3 months prior. But apparently, this was already a meme in Stewie's old teams, where he would often say no. And then a few days later, he would come back with the same idea and say, hey guys, this is a cool idea, right? That's what coaching staff is for. That's what we're about. All the warning lights on, nobody listening to us, and guess what? The plane crashed. See ya. As far as the American game and mentality goes, they watch demos, they learn about the current meta, they know how to make control maps, they know the principles of the game, some of them at least. The big differences with Europe are the following: the way they debrief and the attention they pay to certain rounds. Basically, the closer you get to the end of a round, the more chaotic it is, and more likely you are to not experience that exact situation again. Most of their debriefing is about the end of the round. Like, I should have put my molly at that moment. But bro, the next time you play the situation, it might be in 6 months' time. Tell me about your 3-2-1. Tell me about your control map protocols. Tell me about the principles of the game that you can relate to. There's just a real problem with their methodology. And that's super interesting and sort of, you know, I guess contextually true. Like, just based on listening to players and how they talk about games, I haven't gone to many events. Players really do seem to tunnel in on like little mistakes that happen at the end of rounds, which, you know, as he rightly identifies there, you're not going to be able to replicate because there's so many fucked up variables in a chaotic end of round situation that, yeah, you'll probably never encounter that identical, you know, you'll only rarely encounter something identical to that. You know, a molly spreading in a certain way, or, you know, I could have peeked, or I mistimed the bomb plant, or, you know, whatever it is. So it's interesting that Americans, you know, seem to be, you know, focused on that. Then there's preparation. A player sees something fancy, he shows it, he has no idea what it is or isn't in his playbook. You have 3 control maps, 2 strategies in B, and then that's it. It was something in a YOLO mode that they saw on a server. I found this finishing A on Overpass. They talk about it for 35 minutes without asking themselves if they actually need it. And all the practice you're playing, teams that are attacking you mid-round, and you can never do your finish. And the second thing is that your control map in A is questionable, and you have no freeze. How do you want to do that finish? And the last thing is the vision of how to guide a project. Stewie, he gets up in the morning, he's like, I want to play this map and I want to do that. And it's, bro, you can't operate like that. You have to take more perspective. What am I missing in my maps? Where do I want to go? What philosophy do I want to institute? And especially if you're a captain, you don't have the global vision. You have your head in the game. That's when we can come in. I even made videos and documents where we had problems at the level of trade capacity on certain mid-round phases that are too similar on zone recoveries. Such player does not understand that he should not give himself, etc. And every time we intervened, well, when it was Malek at least, Stewie had a problem with him. I was lucky. Stewie thought that by being buddies with me, it would piss Malek off. So during the Pro League without Malek, he was very open and involved. And when I prepared an eco on Mirage, and he calls it only once in practice, we don't iterate, we don't progress, we don't retain, we don't progress, because we don't do repetition. We just waste time. So, I mean, it sounds like, you know, these guys are trying to implement some sort of high-level framework for something. And the players don't care. They don't want to listen. Stewie doesn't want to implement it. He's got his own ideas. Now, keep in mind as well, that's also the same Pro League where he just downed tools and stopped calling entirely in front of the CEO, according to this guy. So, I mean, you know, I think we've got bigger, more fundamental problems. So we get to the end. When Malek was explaining the problems, sending out clips, and where any organization would have responded by asking for an explanation and talking about it directly, our supervisor was saying, this is unacceptable, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. But he didn't do anything. They were talking about plans to live in Europe all the time, all kinds of projects, and at the last moment they made a switch and put obstacles in Malek's way. They had a plan to go on a boot camp for 2.5 months, not to play any official games, and to come back in legend mode. It's good to be on a submarine mode, but if you don't have any competition for 2.5 months, how do you maintain the player's level of motivation? A lot of things were wrong, and Malek lost it, and simply said, stop, you are doing shit. Do what I asked you to do. This is not normal. He had been right for 6 months, and when he stood up and demanded that we stop bullshitting him, it was over. Malek benched himself, and EG wanted to part with him. Me, I get up in the morning, and a buddy says to me, bro, I hope it goes well for you. I'm in bed. I don't understand. I opened Twitter, and we were kicked. I was always told, but I never believed it, that Americans were very hypocritical. Very good job, bro. Very nice. Oh my God, you're insane, etc. And behind your back, they stick in a knife. Well, I got the proof. They promised us a lot of things. We only got positive feedback, but it was Team Stewie that won. And when we get kicked, the players come to us, except for Stewie, of course, to tell us they didn't agree. Now they're not going to shout about it from the rooftops. So it sounds like Malek reached his breaking point after 6 months. Basically said it's me or Stewie. The org picked Stewie. They removed him and then forgot to even say to the assistant coach, yeah, we're firing you too. And he found out through Twitter. And, we talked about that at the time and said that wasn't very professional and not a good look for who is supposed to be the tier one, one of the top organizations in North America and in esports in general. That's the standard EG should set themselves. They're a legendary, iconic brand. And just to add to this bit as well, this idea of the perma boot camp, it really puts into perspective now signing the other two teams. And just so people know what I'm talking about in case you did miss it, I am, of course, talking about this, which is that EG went out and signed Carpe Diem and Party Astronauts to create what they were calling was a fluid 15-man team. And so they picked up two, certainly, inarguably, lesser experienced, in my opinion, lesser talented teams, and they end up with a roster like this. And here it is. You can see there's the team, the problem team, the supposed flagship CSGO team. And you can see as well, you've got this one team here with Walco, Wiz, Hex, Chop, and Clazier. I think I remember commentating on one of their games back. It must have been the North American RMR, right? And they didn't go far. I think they went out in last place. Then, of course, these guys, DJ, John G, former Chaos, obviously, Ben Lee, Pone Alone, and Viz. And then on the you've got Axed as a coach. He was playing, not that long ago, and Munster, another coach. And you can see, look, listen, I'll read you the statement here that came with it. This is from Danny Engels, the EG Director of Gaming Excellence. Might want to let me know when you get some excellence going on in the CS team. Said the beauty of Counterstrike is that we have so many different tournaments happening at once. It's not like the players are just waiting to get the shot in your pro league and blast a major. There are so many tournaments that we can play in at once, even in a world where we can have three Evil Geniuses team playing at the very same time. Because of how the tournament circuit currently works and the scheduling set with Blast straight into pro league and then everything's squeezed into the second half of the year, we expect the current 5 players to be the roster that will be competing in what you would call the main tournaments with a small asterisk, because you never know what will happen on the way. So in other words, all of our commitments, all of our franchise leagues, all of our partnered leagues, the Louvre agreement, Blast, etc., yes, we'll enter the star players and the big names, who will probably turn up and be shit and lose all of their games. For all of the other tournaments that would functionally serve as good practice for this, for our flagship team, we're going to enter these lesser American guys who are going to get banged out. And somehow, somewhere along the road, we're going to hope that maybe a miracle happens and some collection of 5 players turns into a functional team. What was fucking crazy was, when this announcement happened, and remember, we ridiculed Astralis for saying 10-man roster, rightly so. It's a 5-man game, and you need 1 sub at best. And, they were doing the 7-man roster. Spoiler, they only ever did that to have leverage over the players when they were renegotiating their contracts. It was essentially scabs breaking a picket line. I don't know how many times I have to explain it to people. They didn't have any real designs on fucking 7-man rosters, 10-man rosters. Then EG swoops in and you've gone for 15. I mean, I don't even understand that part. Like, why two other teams? Why not just get one other team and have like EG, you know, the other EG, an academy team, but not in name, and they occasionally fill in for the main team at these other tournaments that they might want to enter, and the EG branding gets out. But what happens now with the other team? It's wild. And this is what really pisses me off, because, and it seems in line with what was in that interview, because if you remember, there was like there was a Pinnacle Cup, but it wasn't like an online Pinnacle Cup. It was in a fucking, you know, stadium, and you know, there was some decent teams in attendance, certainly more decent than Evil Geniuses. It was this one here. You'll remember, because Blame F put his back out trying to carry Astralis and won the MVP, even though Astralis didn't win the finals against Heroic. And everyone went, wow, he's got an MVP even though he didn't win, as if that's weird. By the way, it happens all the time in real sports. You have a LAN, right? Now, EG put in the Party Astronauts squad. Tell me, right, in what world can the main EG team afford to turn down the opportunity to practice against teams of this caliber? Especially considering all of this talk, by the way, from Danny Engels about how busy the schedule looks and all their agreements. Your schedule's pretty fucking thin. Like, in what world would it not have been good for the main EG team to turn in? Like, you could have maybe won a couple of games. Get that winning feeling back. Certainly, you would have had the opportunity to, like, maybe play, like, a Big or a Heroic or, you know, the new look Fnatic, you know, some, like, decent European caliber opposition. But instead, what you decided to do was not play because you're in submarine mode or whatever the fuck you think you're doing. And you dodge out on an opportunity to play the type of tournament that would actually make you better, probably because on some level you're already checked out and you can't handle the humiliation of losing again. So that's essentially what the Party Astronauts team are doing. Party Astronauts are there to spare the main EG team's blushes, because when Party Astronauts finish 7th to 8th, behind Fnatic, behind Imperial, behind Finest, behind Big, you don't bat an eye. You go, yeah, of course they do. If EG, the real team, finishes there again, you go, fucking hell, when's this team ever gonna fucking win? Ever again? And obviously, it's not gonna. It's really bad. I'll also add, you know, we can see what you're up to in your spare time while all these CS tournaments are going on. And look, I never want to beat up players publicly for what they do in their downtime or what they play when they stream. It's pathetic. You have no idea. First of all, this idea that if you grind 100 hours in 2 weeks of CS, you'll be godlike is nonsense, because, you know, Cirque's been doing that and he's still struggling. It's not a rule. It's like you work smarter, not harder necessarily. Like, repetition doesn't, you know, like I know legendary chess players that barely fucking played at all. Meanwhile, some used to fucking play the game all day. It's different. It's different for everybody. But, you know, the reality is, it is terrible optics for where you are right now. If you're that EG team, taking that money, earning as big as you are, it's fucking terrible optics if you're then playing fucking Valorant on a stream all day with other Valorant owners and other Valorant figures and not even paying attention to what your other team is doing. Like, at this point, it would just be better for everybody to admit you're checked out, you don't care, you've made the money, you're excited by the tantalizing prospect of starting over in Valorant, right? Which you can't keep putting that off, by the way. If you're going to go, you need to go soon. That window is closing. You're not going to walk in, you know? Like, this is how much things have changed in fucking Valorant in the last, 8 months, right? Last year, is Twistzz the best player in the world? Wow, I heckin' love Twistzz, bat chest. Now, everyone's like, he's washed. He should just fuck off and stream. That's the way things have gone in Valorant. Like, so you probably missed the window, but it's a window that's only getting smaller and harder to fucking jump through. You got to make a call. And right now, all this is doing is you're dragging the EG brand through the mud, you're tarnishing your own legacy, sounds like you're out of fucking control with your own ego, and you've got no one around who's going to put you in check. Not even the players that you play with, who are meant to be your boys, they're going behind your back and telling the coach, like, shit, man, yeah, he's out of control, fuck, we should have listened to you. You got to have your come to Jesus moment, homie. Right? It's that simple. You've got to have your come to Jesus moment. And, you know, if you're not in, just quit. Just, you know, you'll always be one of the best. But the longer and longer you piss it all away, the less true that is. Seems simple enough.